As our recommended reading for this class, The Native People of Alaska, mentions that the Athabascan people of the interior of Alaska relied upon two main subsistence strategies. Among the riverine and Pacific groups, salmon fishing was supplemented by moose and caribou hunting in the spring and fall, as well as snaring and trapping various fur bearers. This list of fur bearers included beaver, muskrat, hare, squirrel, and marmot. Fish that was taken from the local streams and rivers included whitefish, pike, blackfish, trout, and other freshwater species. Snared or hunted birds such as grouse and ptarmigan, as well as a variety of migratory waterfowl, where and when available, were used to contribute to meals as well. Members of all groups collected bark, berries, greens, and roots during spring and late summer. What used to be extreme fluctuations in the food supply in the interior of Alaska, following cycles of predator and prey abundance, in today's time is now compounded to be worse with the cycles of weather, which include drought, wildfires, and excessive rainy days like those of the summer of 2014. President of the United Nations General Assembly, Miguel Brockman, in 2009, was quoted as saying, "Climate change poses threats and dangers to the survival of indigenous communities worldwide, even though they contribute the least to greenhouse emissions. In fact, indigenous peoples are vital to the many ecosystems in their lands and territories and help enhance the resilience of these ecosystems. In addition, indigenous peoples interpret and react to the impacts of climate change in creative ways, drawing on traditional knowledge and other technologies to find solutions that society at large can replicate to counter pending changes." Global environmental change is just one of the many drivers that are shaping Alaska's regional food systems, creating a situation of extreme food insecurity for many remote villages that has in many cases garnered much attention in the national public and academic media. The harvest and consumption of subsistence or country foods play various roles in the health of these people and their communities, with procurement, preparation, storage, and distribution of these foods, each representing important social and cultural moments in local foodways. Traditional foods account for 22% of energy intake overall in a cross-sectional study of a 24-hour period of recall in which data was collected from 241 men and 307 women aged 14 to 94, living in 7 remote communities of western Alaska. Remote Arctic communities have experienced relatively rapid changes in lifestyle, including changes in their diet. Specifically, consumption of a traditional subsistence diet has given way to an increased reliance of imported Western foods. This shift is likely to contribute to a decline in diet quality and an increase in the prevalence of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and obesity. The significant overall diversity of country foods has made for a reliant and self-reliant food system, providing people with valuable options for adapting to changes in the weather, landscape, and annual and seasonal variability in the distribution and availability of fish and game. However, challenges for the subsistence hunter or fisher are very different than they were even 20 years ago. Climate change impacts tied into persistent organic pollutants, or POPs, and other toxic contaminants being released as the earth warms and the permafrost melts. In Alaska, the people are seeing increased disease in animals with cancer and tumors. We are not sure what to do with these new sicknesses. Water clans do not know how to host ceremonies when the water is contaminated with pharmaceutical chemicals. In the Bering Sea, in the Arctic, climate change brings storms and erosions. We harvest stinky whales that are counted in our quota, but we can't eat because they have been poisoned. The thawing of the permafrost destroys the freezers we used to preserve our food. There are contaminants in the breast milk of our mothers and toxins in the bellies of our salmon. If you are what you eat, we are becoming toxic ourselves. As the ice melts, the walrus stay on the coast and destroy the food along the coastline. The rains come at the wrong time, so they turn the ground to ice. Our reindeer crush their hooves to the bone, but they still cannot break through the ice, and they starve. We find stones and dirt in their stomachs. Studies at the University of Alaska have shown that the willow branches on which young moose survive used to be highly nutritious, but 200 miles away their nutrition value has dropped so much that although their bellies are full, technically they are starving. In the Yukon River, where king salmon are the staple food for indigenous peoples, there are no more big fish. They depend on berries for vitamins for their immune system, but when there is no rain, there are no berries. It is not just the health of the people we must watch, but also the health of plants and animals is needed for survival. Our elders used to die from being old, now they die from being unhealthy. Further denied, the life of hunters and gatherers is changing. We rely on caribou living in the barren lands, but our caribou have suffered a major decline in the last 5 to 10 years. Our weather is unpredictable. The rains come at the wrong time, they freeze on the land surface, and our animals cannot get food over winter months, and their calves starve. Their migration patterns have changed because the ice forms later and melts earlier. The calving grounds are temperature dependent, so they have also changed. We have reduced our own hunting and cut non-resident or sport hunting to manage our herds. Climate change is currently affecting the health of Alaska natives, through impacts of extreme weather, changes to the local environment, and alterations in plants and animal resources. The mental health effect of such impacts remains incompletely researched and understood. Alaska Native mental health is vulnerable to climate change impacts such as extreme weather, increased erosion, changes in subsistence resources, sea level and seasonality, and thawing permafrost. The environmental changes that many Alaska Natives have experienced in recent history have forced an identification of the adaptive aspects of traditional culture. The rapid pace of climate change and the related mental health vulnerabilities are emerging sources of re-traumatization and forced adaptation. By focusing enculturation on the most adaptive aspects of traditional culture, Alaska Natives can minimize climate change stress and enable successful responses. Additionally, the continued healthy management of acculturation and promotion of its beneficial aspects will facilitate positive mental health in the face of complex future stressors. Alaska Native populations have proven mental health resiliency. Alaska has emerged as the poster state for global warming. The climate effect attributed to higher concentrations of greenhouse gases, mostly carbon dioxide created by burning fossil fuels, that capture the sun's heat in the atmosphere. Since the 1970s, climate change has doubled the growing season in some places. Since 1950, the overall state temperature has risen by 3.5 degrees, while wintertime temperatures have risen by 6 degrees, says Jude, a professor at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Drought is stressing and killing spruce, aspen, and birch trees. Whether driven by necessity, expedience, or both, this nutrition transition is widespread across the North American Arctic. Although the extent to which diets are changing varies significantly from community to community and even within communities among different age groups. This transition has not been without its caveats, and a variety of ongoing research is working to quantify the economic, nutritional, even psychological and psychosocial outcomes that continue to emerge. We can say without claims of clear or straightforward casualty that Alaska Native populations now suffer an unprecedented burden of physical, mental, and social health syndromes and diseases from near epidemic increases in cancer, coronary heart disease, type 2 diabetes, depression, and alcoholism, all trends that co-occur, if not correlate, with changing foodways. We need to treat, teach, and develop. Educating our people is paramount. It is cheaper to prevent disease with traditional knowledge than it is to treat the problems when they arise. Although education and awareness of global changes are in the mainstream news these days, we must strive to continue the research and awareness to make changes so we can at least slow down these changes that are affecting so many of us.